I was still in the closet, in and out of my sexuality, still trying to self-discover who I am and what my sexuality was. You show up one day working with them and the next day they were gone. I remember a time when they were still smoking on the aircraft. I mean, they were...
Come and fly away with me. Don't you be afraid, everything will change. You and I, jumping off the edge. They said dreamers never die.
I've been flying over 30 years in the airline business, 3 decades. Let's talk about it. So I started way back in the late 80s. It was 1987. Ronald Reagan was president of the United States. Whitney Houston was singing The Greatest Love of All. La Bamba was the song. And Platoon won Best Picture at the Academy Awards. I was 18 years old, I was young, I was cute, you couldn't tell me nothing. I was still in the closet, in and out of my sexuality, still trying to self-discover who I am and what my sexuality was. There were many reasons why I didn't want to come out the closet at the time, because it was the late 80s, AIDS epidemic was rampant, I was scared to even touch anybody back at that time. Or anybody was at that time. I remember at the airlines I would fly with flying partners. You show up one day working with them and the next day they were gone. First couple of years I've worked the ground as a customer service agent, and it was just sad. You would just come to work and scared who's gonna make it or not. Thankful that I'm still here and still going, that I didn't have to go through all that AIDS epidemic, but it was scary times. I lost so many friends. Anyway, this is going to be more of a happy video, so let's move on. My very first airplane I ever flown was the DCA McDonnell Douglas. It's no longer existing. I think they merged with Boeing. And we've had so many aircraft retirements. I've worked the 727, which is now retired, the DC-10, the 747 first series, 100, 200, and 300 series, which all those aircraft required 3 pilots. They had an engineer to check the oil and the gas levels and all those things, and modern airplanes now narrow it down to 2 pilots, but there was a time where they had 3 pilots. Of course, I was working at one of the major airlines, and we had a lot of wide-body aircrafts, and we were using a lot of those domestically, which I was flying first because my company, we did not fly international when I started in 1987. We flew to Mexico and we flew to Canada, and we had just bought Pan Ams.
The vice president of Cadbury Schweppes is sleeping on the job. The publisher of Cosmopolitan can barely keep his eyes open. In fact, some of the world's most successful business people are off in Never Never Land. And that's exactly where we want them. Because when it comes to business, Pan Am believes the more relaxed and rested you are up here, the better you'll do down there. Pan Am, the #1 airline to Europe and more.
Royal Pacific route, which flew to Asia, like Japan, Australia, Auckland. It was an exciting time for the airlines, merging as a world global airlines. I can remember when they were staffing 747s with 18 to 20 crew members on these aircrafts, and we were flying domestically, DC and New York, and laying over, and you can easily find someone you can just hang out on your layover. And in those days, it was black, white, gay, straight. Mostly predominantly males, it was gay, but there were straight males, which I never understood, but now I do. But it was just so much to do during the 80s. On the layover. We would get in from our trip, change into our little hoochie mama clothes, dance all night, and be back out ready for the next flight that morning. Hungover, but ready to go. Security wasn't a big deal. Well, I shouldn't say it wasn't a big deal, but security wasn't in your face at the time. I can remember just showing our ID badge, and we got through security, and there was no threats. We had a lot of hijackings at that time where they would actually hijack the plane, like tell us that your plane is hijacked and we're flying into this country, and they would land, and then we would give them ransom money, and then everything would be okay. Fast forward 30 years, we all know that that is totally different, and we go through security, and security is probably one of our forefront of being a flight attendant. Anyway, I was looking fly in my uniform. Uniform compliance was very strict. Your supervisor would do compliance checks in your briefings. You could not be out of place. It was very conservative. I don't know what we have now, but back then, I kind of miss those days. I'm seeing anything and everything these days. As I look back and reminisce, I remember a time when they were still smoking on the aircraft. I mean, they were just... including the crew. There was even crew jump seats where the crew were able to smoke right after takeoff. I think when you guys hear that ding ding after 10,000 feet, that was also the smoking sign that you were allowed to start smoking after 10,000 feet. It was weird because if you were on a small aircraft like a 727, which only had 2 rows in first class, they would make row 1 smoking, or actually row 1 would be non-smoking and row 2 would be the smoking section. Well, it really wouldn't matter because the smoke just blew all over the cabin. Economy, I swear it would be like a cloud hanging over in the economy cabin of people smoking throughout the whole entire flight. You would get to your layover and your clothes would just reek with the smell of smoke. You would go out to bars, there was smoking in bars. They had restaurants where it was non-smoking or smoking. Even your rooms were smoking and not smoking. I am thankful that that generation is gone. I was mostly flying domestic. As I said, our airlines only flew to Mexico and Canada, and we just had gotten the Pan Am routes, but I was too junior. I was on reserve. Talk about being on reserve. Let's talk about that. Y'all, there was no internet. There was no cell phone. You had to be at home waiting for the crew desk to call you and say you're going to XYZ. You got 4 hours to get to the airport and be there on time. Right when I became a flight attendant, they were having beepers where they would actually have a beeper that doctors would use and they would beep us, and then we would have to go find a payphone, Google that, and call them back within 45 minutes that we received your assignment. And how do we do that? Because I can't imagine being on reserve today with the technology that we didn't have, but we did it. There was no email, everything was snail mail. It would take days or weeks to get something from your company letting you know about information, which prompted a lot of rumors. We call it jump seat rumors, that you would hear something on the East Coast. By the time it got to the West Coast, it was totally changed to something else. I think the 80s was the last bit of glamorous life. There were so many airlines to choose from, but then late 80s, bankruptcies started happening, mergers. Y'all remember Pan Am? There was also TWA, there was Eastern Airlines, there was so many legacy airlines. I think there were about 20 legacy airlines and a few no-frill airlines like Southwest, but just the gas prices had went up, labor prices went up. We were making money in the 80s as flight attendants, and the economy was fitting our wages. You know, you could have your own little apartment, you didn't need 15 roommates. Very few people commuted, it just wasn't just thought about. We had so many bases around the country that you didn't really have to commute. So what happened in the 80s stays in the 80s. Now let's move on to the 90s, the decades of the 90s.
I thought that I heard you laughing every breath you take. Troublesome nigga.
I feel like the 90s had a slow start. George Walker Bush was still president, or became president of the United States in the early 90s. The Gulf War had broken out. A lot of the military had used the airlines for transportation of our troops. I was flying a lot of military charters at that time, sending some of our young kids into harm's way in Iraq. It was the Desert Storm. It was when I really took my job serious. I was a young man, now I'm in my early 30s, still couldn't tell me nothing. I was young, single, had my own apartment, I had money in the bank, a little wiser. I was the bomb. And about the mid-90s, it was the Bill Clinton era. He became president of the United States. Things started getting a little bit better. The 90s music was Montel Jordan. This is how was teaching us, let's talk about sex. No, that was Salt and Pepper talking about sex. TLC, that was Left Eye wearing the condom in her eye. ABC was wearing their clothes backwards. Cross Colors was the fashion. Gangster rap, the LBC, Snoop Dogg, Dre, Tupac was the music of the 90s. Janet Jackson was getting in control, showing us how the rhythm nation of the world. There was no Beyonce. How did I survive without Beyonce? The world was changing, was moving on to technology. Everybody now can afford a cell phone. Everybody had a cell phone. The internet was very popular. I was a big AOL chat room. You've got mail. You guys remember that?
You've got mail.
Took about 20 minutes just to get online. I was dating in those chat rooms, but we'll talk about that in another video. We started seeing more and more computers on the aircraft. It was kind of interesting to see like, ooh, look, he has a computer. We actually had telephones on the aircraft at that time. It was like $100 a minute, but we had it. We still only had projectors on the aircraft, so we're only showing one movie at a time. And then after the movie was over, everybody would wait in line to go to the bathroom, and it would be a line all the way down to the window exits. We still were serving amazing food. We were serving fresh food that the chef would cook in the kitchen, and we would just prepare it on the aircraft for our first class. Dom Perignon was the champagne. Beluga caviar was all over the place. Fine dining, fine china. We had a lot of course meal classes. I was finally flying temporary international. They would give some of us new people a chance to fly international. So it was a little bit of glamour. I was off reserve. I was a line holder. I've been based in San Francisco the whole time. Still flying for free around the world. I was flying actually a lot international in the 90s, which was weird because at the time it was expensive to actually make a phone call international. You would have to use the hotel phone and call collect. Does anybody know what collect call means? To call back home to check on family members.
Operator, I'd like to make a collect call, please. First name Bob, last name is We Otta Baby Eats a Boy.
Hello?
Collect call for Mr. Bob. We Otta Baby Eats a Boy.
Sorry, wrong number.
Who's that, dude?
Bob, they had a baby. It's a boy.
If you like saving money, call Geico. A 15-minute call could save you 15% or more on car insurance.
Last name is We Otta Baby Eats a Boy, 8 pounds, 3 ounces, but it's doing fine.
I was new to international, trying foreign food and money. I'm very finicky when it came to food. If it wasn't from the United States, it must be not clean. And just being more lonely because you were away from home more days a week. I was gone maybe 5-6 days out of the week, flying more and being home less, which for me was a good thing. I was single, why not? By the late 90s, the airlines were doing amazing. They were hiring people left and right. They were trying to compete with the no-frill airlines like Southwest and JetBlue, where we were introducing new kind of flying at my airlines. We were doing what we called the shuttle, where it was no frills kind of airlines, but it was still within the airlines. Competition was fierce. Everything counted. Customer service, how clean the plane was, how we look, our image was everything, because you could fly anybody, and airlines really had to compete back then. I think the 90s actually went by fast. There was really much not going on at the time, but it was good times. I was in my 30s, you couldn't tell me nothing. What happens in the 90s stays in the 90s. Let's talk about the 2000s.
Please don't stop the music. Under my umbrella, tick-tock on the clock, but the party. Shakira. On a single leg.
Wow, what can I say about the 2000s? That was the crash, bang, riggedy, boom, boom. It's gonna be a long decade. Get into it. It was Y2K, the internet was crashing, the world was ending, the airlines were just about struggling. They weren't making money, gasoline was going up again, started farming off their employees and using outside catering and cleaning the aircraft, and that's when customer service went downhill. They were making 2-tier wages, so we were hiring anybody and everybody. And then September 11, 2001 hit.
The hell was that?
Sound like a plane crash. Yo, close to you.
Come to us, come to us.
Neil, it's Brian. A plane crashed into the trade center. Don't mind. I'm in there. And I can't breathe.
This just in, you are looking at obviously a very disturbing live shot there. That is the World Trade Center, and we have unconfirmed reports this morning that a plane has crashed into one of the towers.
Pause there for just a moment.
The whole building just exploded some more. The whole top part.
Okay.
The building's still intact. People are running up the street.
We're looking at this picture. It is the Twin Towers, World Trade Center. Both of them being damaged. Impacted by another, what appeared to be another passenger plane.
That's absolutely inexplicable. There shouldn't be any aircraft in that area, much less something heading what looked like towards the World Trade Center tower.
went to high point on building on the 25th floor, and you had a clear view of.
This is as close as we can get to the base of the World Trade Center. You can see the firemen assembled here, the police officers, FBI agents, and you can see the two towers. A huge explosion now raining debris on all of us. We better get out of the way!
See that? The whole building is
airline never been the same since. My life had changed overnight. It really did. The airlines became more of a security way of traveling than more of a friendly way of flying. It wasn't so friendly skies at that time. After 9/11, a lot of my flying partners never got back on the airplane. That was too much to bear. I knew I had to get on the next day because I didn't want to have that fear of getting back on and afraid to fly. So I was one of those people who flew a week after 9/11. Scary times. You didn't know who was on the aircraft, if they were going to hijack the planes again and run them into buildings. It was just uncertainty, and tensions was at a high level. It was the worst time in aviation history. All the airlines started laying off their employees. A lot of airlines had to file for bankruptcy just to survive, my airlines included. And then came the birth of mergers. A lot of the bigger airlines and legacy airlines, in order to survive, they had to either merge or buy each other out to have less seats in the air and to be able to make money. Gas prices were going up even higher, and I didn't think that my airline was going to survive. I didn't think I was going to survive this airline thing. But thankfully at my airline, with great management and hard dedication of the employees, pay cuts, took a lot of work rule reduction, we were able to save my airlines with the promise that they would take care of us once we got back on our feet. I'll leave that at that. As the years gone by, the airlines were surviving. They were doing the bottom line, doing whatever they can to keep survival. They started introducing a no-frill airline through the legacy of the airline, meaning they were charging for food, baggage, any way they could make a nickel or dime, they were charging the customers. Prices went way up again. It was kind of hard to fly unless it was for business reasons, or leisure travel is just non-existing. My airlines, we had some ups and downs. We had merged with another major airlines. We also had a lot of controversy because the introduction of video. Anybody had a camera on their phone and would capture whatever and anything. And we all know at my airlines, we had a couple of incidents where it was caught on video and our name and reputation just went in the drain. We went from the best airlines to one of the worst airlines to fly. But later on in the late 2000s, we bounced back by merging with another airlines. We stuck to our guns, turned off all the news, and became one of the best airlines to fly. People started flying leisure, our airlines started buying more routes, we were flying international like it was nobody's business. More efficient airplanes were introduced, longer range aircrafts were introduced that we were able to fly more non-stops from my base, San Francisco. And I was senior enough to hold international. We were flying all over the world. We were introducing New Delhi and New Zealand, Dubai, just long destinations that the 787 aircraft was able to have a long range of flight time. Singapore, 17-hour flight. Can you imagine being on the airplane for 17 hours? All union laborers had contracts. We started making money again. The airlines were being profitable. We were getting profit sharings. You could not tell the airlines nothing. You could not tell a flight attendant nothing. It was just perfect time. That brings me to March 2020. I know earlier in 2020 things were still looking amazing. People were flying like crazy. I was planning all my vacations, and we all know what started coming. It was the pandemic. It was here. It hit the airlines like a ton of bricks. It hit us hard, it hit us fast, and it hit us swift, and we are still struggling with that as we speak. We thought we had seen our worst days in 9/11, but we have not seen nothing with this pandemic. It is still continuing to hamper the airline industry, but we do see the light with the vaccine coming. Slowly but surely, the airlines are getting back to normal. Thanks to the government and you guys, you taxpayers, for saving a lot of airlines' jobs to keep the airlines afloat, because right now it is a hot mess in the airline industry. But I can see the light. I can see the light. I'm hoping for the best. But again, in order for the airlines to survive, they started doing furloughs again, and volunteer furloughs, involuntary furloughs, partnership programs, whatever they can do to minimize payroll. My company also offered early retirement for a lot of our flight attendants. A lot of our flight attendants have been flying over 50 years. They offered them a little cash settlement and some benefits, and a lot of them took the bait. A lot of them are retired. I was thinking about it. I was this close from touching that button and retiring early, but I just wasn't ready. I'm in my early 50s. I had a plan. I still have a plan, and it's just wasn't the right time for me to retire. Despite all that's going on, I still love what I do, people. I really do. And I want to see this played out. I've come too far not just to go out not on my terms. I want to go out on my terms. And I want to see the next decade, the next chapter of aviation, of flying, of being a flight attendant. 30 years really has gone by fast. Every time I say that, I can't believe it's been 30 years. I can't believe I'm in my early 50s. Can't believe I still feel young, fresh, and vibrant. Still want to do this. I also want to congratulate all those who did take out the early retirement and wish you guys well. And whatever your next chapter is, it's going to be all right. We're going to be all right. And if you are listening to this video and you are at my company and you did retire, keep in touch. And I know we're going to survive this pandemic. We survived the bird flu, the swine flu, 9/11. It's just another way of seeing the airline industry. Every decade, I feel like the airline industry changes. This too shall pass. Okay, folks, that was a lot of history I just dropped on you, but it was 3 decades of me flying, and I can't wait to give you the next 3 decades. No, I'm kidding. I don't know how long I'll continue to fly, but I'll continue to fly until I'm ready to stop. Thank you guys so much for listening to all this mess that I was giving out to you, but I hope you found this interesting. And if you're new to my channel, you know what to do. Just hit the subscribe button, the like button. I got a lot more coming. All my Sky Boys and Sky Girls, thank you for tuning in. I hope you guys are enjoying my videos. I got a lot more coming towards you. I'm gonna leave it at that. I'm gonna say what I'm gonna say. Y'all know it, right? Bye, girl, bye. Bye. I hate saying goodbye because I know, well, this is still the next video, but bye, girl, bye. Okay, bye. Bye. Cut.